Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're here in town in Florida. I've been trying to get a couple videos knocked out so I can be pushing a few out for the next couple days. If you can hear in the background, it's kind of funny. There's police sirens going on, and also my dad is here, so he has the Hellcat cranked up in the driveway out front playing with it. Kind of ironic, there's also police sirens going on at the same time as soon as I went to record this. So today, I've been talking to a lot of y'all. You're very into our '04 Durango over here. I've had a lot of interactions, conversations with y'all about it. They've been getting a lot of views on our Durango videos. So, today we are working on our '04 Durango Hemi. It's a limited two-wheel drive Hemi. Loaded everything. So as y'all know, we've been in the process of moving. So with that process, we've actually been outfitting a lot of our trucks and SUVs with air helper bags in the rear end. So that's what we're doing on here today. We're going to be replacing the rear shocks as well as adding the helper bags on it, because for some reason the back end's been sagging a little bit lately. Not sure what's going on with that, but we're going to try to figure that out today. So let's get started. So for starters, this is our helper bag kit right here. We got this actually on sale for like 70 bucks shipped. Normally they're about $150 or so. And this is our part number 60808. So that is specifically for these generation Durangos as well as the Chrysler Aspen. They do not have leaf springs in the rear. They are all coil springs, like a lot of the newer half-ton Ram 1500s. So, helper bags always come in handy for these. All right, so we got our airlift kit unboxed. So we have these instructions here. We aren't really going to use those. I've done tons of these before. Where to begin? So as you can see, there's two recommended ways to run the lines for these. You can either join them with a T out the back or run them individually. Not sure why you would run them individually. For me, I always run them with the T and join the two airbags. That way, if you have a leak, they are both always aired up the same amount, versus with this way, you know, each individual fitting to add air to them, you can have more air in one bag than the other. And I just don't see how that would be a good idea. So from there, as you'll see, they also say you can, you know, squeeze them in the springs, you know, through the springs without taking them out. I have tried doing it that way. It's way more of a pain than it's worth. For me, it's easier just to swing the rear axle down, pop the springs out, put the little bags inside the springs, and shove them back in there. Especially being today, we're going to be removing the shocks and replacing them with new ones. Our way is just a lot less complicated, a lot less fighting. It's a lot more easygoing. Especially being that we have a Florida car. It doesn't really have all the rust underneath it like you would up north. So all our bolts should come out pretty easily. We won't really be fighting too much with it. This is a low mileage Durango as well. Also, before we get started, we do have these new shocks for the Durango that are going on. These are Monroe load adjusting shocks. I'm not sure how it will work on this Durango, but it works really well on our first gen 2003. So I would think it'd be pretty decent on this one as well. As you can see, that's the part number for these. And they are specifically for one of these Durangos, the second gen, as well as the Chrysler Aspen. So first off, to start, we're going to chock the front wheels because we'll be lifting the back end up and we don't want it to roll anywhere. So we got wheel chocks on it. We're going to jack it up with the rear end and put some jack stands underneath the frame here. That way the weight of the Durango is supported and we can swing that rear axle down using the floor jack to maneuver what height we want the rear end at as we're coming out with it. All right, so we're under the Durango. We got our jack stands on it. We have the wheels chalked. So what we're gonna do is mark our coil spring location, the way that the coil spring is orientated. From there, we will remove the shocks because those keep tension on how far the rear end can actually swing down. After that, we will probably remove our tensioner bolt right here, and that should give us the room we need to slide our coil springs out. So first, we're gonna put our floor jack back here under the rear end, put a little tension on it, and then we will remove our shocks because these are fully extended right now, so we might want to lift the axle up a little bit to take the tension off this, enough to get the bolts out. All right, so I got the shocks loose. So the bolts for these were 18 millimeter and 15 millimeter. That's our old shocks right there. All right, so we used our paint marker to mark the orientation of our coil springs. So that way when we take them out, we can put them back in the same place. All right, so we actually ended up removing the two 18 millimeter nuts up there that keep the tension on this rear end, as well as the four 15 millimeter bolts for the sway bar where it connects at the axle, the two on either side. That way we have all the room we need. And keep in mind, at this point, the rear end is supported by a floor jack. So once you remove it, lower it down, you have all the room in the world to pull these coil springs out. So we just dropped the rear end down and we have our first coil spring out. So now we'll just drop the bag down in the hole and tuck it back in. All right, so we got our bag inside the coil. This one actually slides into the bottom of it. You know, again, they say you can slide it between the little coils, but it's, again, very difficult. It's a lot easier just to do it this way. It's a lot safer, and it also kind of, I don't know if y'all are like me, it's very easy to get frustrated when you're trying to shove them between the coils and it's not working like you'd like. It's just a lot easier to do it this way. You can put it in, it's easy. You throw it back in, bolt it back up. You know, versus spending an hour or two fighting it, trying to shove one of these things inside the coil. All right, so we bolted everything back in. Extremely easy. We ended up running our hoses just down the frame. We popped them out back here where the bumper mounts on both sides. And we joined them in the middle. I zip tied it to the brace here. And then our T right here is zip tied. And then I just ran it and tucked it back under this brace over here. So there's our little air fitting. You can see that. So we got that, and it's pretty easy. Then you just use your pliers on these little clips. We connected it to the T, have our little clips everywhere on the ends, and that is it. It's an extremely simple install. It took about 2 hours, more time consuming than anything. And also, you know, we changed out these shocks and added these load shocks. So all the tools we used were a 15 millimeter, an 18 millimeter, 21 millimeter for our nuts here. So we used our pliers for the little clips on the hoses, and then we used our little electrical pliers You can see right in there where it cuts. To cut the hoses, because if you use dikes, you could actually end up pinching the little hose. If you see this here, well, if you use dikes, you can actually pinch the hose, kind of weird, and it'll allow air out of there. So we use the electrical cutters because it has kind of a cleaner cut. It actually cuts instead of squeezes. So that helps. And that's all we really have to do. All right, we can't even make this up at this point. So last night was the first night we've had the Hellcat in the garage here. Today, I went to open the garage door and pow, the garage door spring broke. Kind of strange timing of everything, but it's safe. It didn't hurt the car any, just kind of snapped and stayed up there, which that's good for us. So now we got to get garage door guy out here to fix the garage door. Another day, another problem. It seems like everything is now breaking on the house. Now that we're getting ready to sell it, all the appliances are going crazy. Now the garage door is breaking. Can't even make this up at this point. All right, so we got our second-gen Durango in the shop, cleaned up. Threw it on the lift for now. It's really just storage at this point. So, that's it. That's all for today's video.